Welcome everyone. If you could just make yourself comfortable, we'll get things underway. Kia wanju. Hello and welcome. It's a privilege to join you here on the traditional lands, or budja, of the Whadjuk Noongar people in the city of Melville. We're certainly lucky to be here together at Tompkins on the banks of the Derbarl Yerrigan, or what we also refer to as the Swan River. My name's Rob Gearson and I'll be your MC today. Before we officially open proceedings, just a few housekeeping reminders. If you could turn your mobile phones off or on silent, please. The bathrooms, if you weren't aware, at the back of the hall. We will stop for a short break, but however, just feel free to make your way up at any time. Also, before we continue, we are in COVID times, as we all unfortunately know, and the City of Melville have requested, if you can, do wear a mask if you can't socially distance tonight. The bar's open for refreshments throughout, so again, please feel free to head up at any time. It's really exciting to see you all in the room today, and if you're not aware, through the power of the internet, we'll be live streaming tonight's proceedings to attendees all across Australia. Our live stream's been manned by Jurgen from Perth Video, and I'm pleased to say, for the first time, this will also be live captioned through AI media. And for those in the room, we welcome, to my left, Esther and Leanne, who are assisting as our Auslan interpreters. Now, lastly, a reminder, if you are online, feel free to jump into the chat, ask a question of the team, or just say hi. So it's now time to start formal proceedings, and it's a great pleasure to invite Mr. Sean Nannup to the stage to open today's social inclusion through a welcome to country. And as Sean makes his way forward, a quick background on his connection to this area. Sean's a Whadjuk Wadandi Noongar man. He describes himself as a human being, an Indigenous man and a father. His purpose in life is to connect people through his stories. I was attracted to a quote I read on Sean from back in 2019 that resonated with me, and it also happens to be relevant as we head towards National Reconciliation Week, which begins this Friday. And it read, "Sean is a leader of reconciliation and a man with a mission to connect and heal people through the magic of stories." Thank you, Sean.
Oh goodness, all those things that I've got to live up to now. Goodness gracious. And the photo that puts on 30 kilos, people. 30 kilos. You spread the word, but lovely to meet you and to be a part of your evening. And what a beautiful opportunity in life to socially connect in a way that unifies us through the common ground of equality. You know, we as a people understand the Whadjuk Biberman people of this country. We understood how important it was that we saw each other's gift, that their mother, the great Budja, the land and the universe, gave itself. You. And so when we look at the tree, the bird, the fish, the river, the Derbarl Yerrigan that's to the side of us, in our old language we say Biblia Yagan. Biblia is soft meeting a firm. Biblia, 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 blop, blop, blop. You might have heard that before. A soft hitting a firm. And when we say Yagan, it's tortoise. So Yerrigan is Yagan. And everyone know who Yagan is? Yeah, Yagan, his name was, Midjiguri, his father, called him Yagan, tortoise, after the river. His youngest son, he had 3 sons, the middle one we don't talk about, but the youngest one, his name was Bill. And Bill Nannup was his name, after Belia, the river plain. He named all of his kids. So one of my great-great-great-grannies, 4 generations behind, came up to marry Midjigura and had a little boy named Bill. And my grandfather was born in the hills of Mundaring, and we're the keeper of the Zamia tree up there. But when we understand everything has an art, song, dance, language, story, there we understand that the spiritual flow of dancing together, singing together, is a place where everyone belongs. And through action, through the practices of dancing and singing, the bird, the tree, I will now give you a little bit of the Derbyl Yurigan. And so when we sing this, we say Biblia, 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 and then we say Mera is the actual dance. Biblia, Mera, Biblia, Mera, Biblia, Mera. And as I sing, I tap the wood. And if I slow it down, your heart and your body flows with it. If we want to make the world a better place, then get into the rhythm of softness. Be gentle. Demakamanga. Take it slowly. This is how we affect the world in a way that we know is graciousness, humbleness, by showing presence with our beautiful energy, and to allow others to walk up to you and go, "Oh, how are you going? There's a bit of chaoticness going on here on the train or at work or on the streets, but you're standing here, you look like you've just come out of like a sauna and a place of great, you know." And you say, "Yes, I'm forever in the Garden of Eden." And so it's our duty in our rightful way to welcome you to country in the old language where everyone and everything belongs equally. And that's confronting to many of our elders and those that are before us, because there's been pain, there's been false beliefs in our false teachings that we are different. And we have to work really hard to gain your trust, to be able to show you that we see you as a gift and we want to honour your gift. There is no disability in our culture. We see the opportunity to say, well, if you can't see, I get a chance to walk with you and guide and support you, but you'll encourage me. I have trouble in being now maintaining my purpose, my direction. Can you give me some love and give me some feedback to me, to the guidance that I know that I desperately need? Because even though I can see, I get a feeling I'm not able to embrace. That's just a little bit of this beautiful word of Whadjuk Biberman people of this country that travels right across this beautiful country, all the way to the other side of Australia and beyond. We are one family. If my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was sitting here right now, he lived in nature. He walked out of caves, he hunted on the time of the full moon. He understood that when the plant blossoms, the river's full of fish, which is the Derbyl Yurigan. There's a beautiful little yellow flower. Once that blossoms, that river's full of fish. Could you imagine our grannies walking out? "Oh, not too long, grandson." "What too long? Why are you looking up in the sky?" "Oh, that moon almost in the right position." And you look down too. Yes, because they're both connected. How can they be connected, grandfather? Because when that beautiful moon is in that right position, that flower will blossom. And when that flower blossoms, we start singing and dancing by. Why are we singing and dance for, grandfather? Because your mother, she loves salmon. And if we get it right, then everyone will enjoy the richness of this beautiful gift. And so let's serve our beautiful mother, your grandmother, by maintaining this connection to above and below and to everything around it. And we can then really serve the gift that we know is desperately needed in our community, that is love. So before I finish up in the welcome to you today, I hope I've taken you on a journey where now your mind is with me and soft, it's gentle. Let's not worry about all the big things that are happening in the world. And then I hope your heart is now flowing and getting into the rhythm of this old story that unites us all, because your great-great-great-great-grandfather came out of caves. Came out of bushes and the trees, out of nature. And I hope this just ignites this relationship that maybe you feel is not present in this place that we call Australia today. But how can it not be when you are present with us? And let's honour their gift of you. And if we get the chemistry right, then this evening that you have now is going to have foundation that when we speak, it's one that really flows as a beautiful gift, nothing more, nothing left, no control. If you stand up with passion, it's about making sure that you're heard and being able to give the gift that you wish to give. Are you with me? All right. So we do this together, and what we're going to do now, what I would like you to do, as we sing to that river, as we speak the language to that river, our Demagamanga old people, they start to go, "Whoa, I know that song you're singing, boy. Oh, my nephew Kobe's here tonight, and his language is fantastic. Far exceeds my language of dance and song. He's an amazing dancer in the nightclubs I hear. But his language is well and truly embedded in his DNA. And his mother, who's Delaray Morrison, is fantastic with a beautiful language, passionate. And it's now fed beautifully down to the soft soul of this young man who's going to get a chance to talk to you in a few moments. Our future is well and truly taking care of people. Don't feel lost. If I was lost, then my nephew would be lost. And I don't get that at one iota. And I'm just so proud to be able to say to you that when we sing and dance to that beautiful river, those old people up there, they go, "Oh, don't forget us. You call upon us to be a part of this beautiful dance and song." We know how to do that because we give you the footprint to step into. So together, I'm going to come down and sit. So if you can't hear me, please, I'll come a bit closer. Is anyone at the back going to have trouble for me to hear? No? Can you hear me now? Yeah? Fantastic. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to sit down. You don't have to see me. I just hope you can hear and feel. And so as we sit here now, I'd like to put your hands on your chest. Your mother gave you a rhythm. Just like that river, it's always flowing. And she said, when you feel this, you'll understand. You come back to your heart, my baby. I'm always with you. This is one that doesn't need to be taught. It beats for you and you only. This idea that you give your heart to your partner and you say, "Hold it, please look after it. I give you my heart wherever you go. Make sure that you think of me." Doesn't matter how many times you call them, 3 or 4 times a day. Are you thinking about me? Are you making sure that you have my heart? Bessie, this is my heart. Your heart is yours and yours only. Treat it with great compassion. Be kind on yourself. If it's beating a little bit fast, take a deep breath. So I'd like you to take a deep breath now. Hold it. 3, 2, 1. Out. 3, 2, 1. In. Can you feel the softening of your body and your mind? It's a time now for us to say together, Wara, Wira, Uyakana. Bad spirit go, we don't need you right now. Murich Viren dat nyening krobadan, yen yak. You're so caught up in connecting to your heart, right? Let's take it slowly. One step at a time. There we'll find that we can have success. Let's not rush too far ahead. Murich, Wirin, Dad Yenning, Krobadan, Yen Yak. Murich, Wirin, Dad Yenning, Krobadan, Yen Yak. You're great students. Good spirit, come sit not in the air but in our skin, Dad Yenning. When you feel the goosebumps going over your body, that's all our grandparents dancing with your spirit child inside you. The old people are saying, look at our grandchildren. Chinese, Japanese, French, Dutch, English, they're all dancing across our skin saying, look, they understand unity. After all the wars, after all the reasons to turn their back on each other, yet here they are, together, supporting one another, making sure everyone feels included at the table that we know deserves each and every one of us as a gift. They must be proud, they must be saying as they dance across our skin. Let's be honoured that they maintain the gift that we wish for all of our great-great-great-grandchildren to have. We walk in the footsteps of you, our old people. I say our we, one family people. You're my uncle, I'm your nephew, you're my brother, you're my sister. these languages are very common when we get past this need to separate through our skin groups, or our hair, the glasses we carry. Let's show we've learned from our grannies, hey? Wanju, nija, wajak, nyunga, buja, wanju, nija, wajak, murich, yogas, wanju, welcome, welcome. Murich is really good. Yogas are women, murich mamin is our men. To the Wirrakulunga dancing with the old people right now, saying, come on, you mob. We have an opportunity with our heartbeat to be able to give something that we know. If my grandfather did not have the opportunity to have freedom in his life, that he believed that he was incarcerated into a small box and to be seen and not to be heard, then what would he say about his grandson standing up before you now and saying, come on, you mob? There's a celebration. What would he say if he did not succeed? We cannot control the spirit of one that is free beyond anyone. Nelson Mandela, you can cage me for 26 years and I walk out with the gracious of love. I will show you, I will lead with that beautiful. And I believe today, City of Melbourne are saying exactly the same story. We are going to put action, we're going to put an evening on, and we're going to show people through the gracious of unity that we have overcome. And when one, all do. And so hopefully tonight, this sense of connection that you're starting to feel now, or flow with one another, it serves you beyond this day. And anytime you feel as though that you're a little bit lesser, or the environment around you does not understand your personal gift of love and compassion from where you are, you put your hand on your heart and say, Mum, it's okay. I know I was a gift to you, and I really appreciate the opportunity of being a gift that you gave yourself. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean, for so kindly welcoming us and opening our Social Inclusion Forum today. And on behalf of Inclusion Solutions, I respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we're meeting, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I personally really connected the way you spoke. Your passion and skill as a storyteller, it shone through. You're really calming as a speaker and an influencer.
I'm not so calming in the sense of the parliament.
Okay.
I'm really, really uncomfortable.
I don't think we have any politicians here tonight, but I don't know. But your respect for history and your duty to care for country and each other really shone through, where everyone belongs, and it's through action we make change. And I felt some goosebumps, so you connected with me, mate. For a little note for everyone else here today, as part of the City of Melville's Reconciliation Week celebrations, you can hear a lot more of Sean's wonderful storytelling. They've got 2 events running Tuesday and Thursday. There's free tickets available online, and to this and many other events, that's through the city's website. So get along, you won't be disappointed. So tonight we look forward to many wonderful stories from many people making a difference in their own community. But before we move on to that, I just wish to acknowledge some of our sponsors and supporters that make today's event possible. Special thank you to our friends at Lottery West, our partners today, the City of Melville, as well as Evolve Wealth Management, with a special shout out to Paul and Chrissy Holly, who join us here tonight. And with them is their daughter Jazzy, who has a little art store at the back setting up. Now, Chrissy, who is here, is just going to give us a little background on Jazzy and explain a bit of her little story. Thanks, Chrissy.
Firstly, Sean, that was amazing. My blood pressure lowered significantly from that. So I'm just going to, I have no captions because I've literally hijacked, so sorry about the lack of those. However, Jazzy's not even here anymore. Okay, so Jazzy is going to be at the back at 7 o'clock at closing, and she has some cards. So Jasmine, my daughter, Paul's daughter, has autism, and she has a micro enterprise, which is through Valued Lives. So all the cards are her paintings that she's marketed. She's 17, so and she's been really successful in this role. So if you are happy to support her at the end, she told me that she wants all your money, which Rob will reiterate at the end, but she's really happy for you to have a look at her products, and she'll talk to herself about her story. Okay, thank you.
I have bought some product, it's good, get amongst it. Okay, so before we hear from our presenters, who have some great stories to share with us, anyone who's attended one of these forums before would know we aim to have a theme around each event. And tonight's no different. And our theme is speak up, be brave, and make change. And they're all strong statements, and they fittingly, it ties in very closely with National Reconciliation Week, which begins on Friday. Tonight we'll be treated to a number of stories that highlight the different ways that we use our voices, our crafts, or our vehicles to speak up and share the message on the benefits of social inclusion. And sometimes that also requires people to be brave, to take on the status quo and to challenge the norm and be the one to initiate that positive change. The one to do not what's easy, but to do what's right. And when I was first told of this theme, and I try and take a moment to reflect, what does speak up, be brave, and make change mean to me personally? And maybe as we start tonight, maybe each of you can also consider, what does it mean to you? For me, my first thought that popped into my head was around being a bit of an activist. And in some ways, those who know me would call me more of an antagonist rather than an activist. And activism, it's not me. I'm not really that way inclined as a person. So after I was having a bit of a think, I came to a view that for me, speaking up and being brave is about what we each may do to stand up for what we believe in. To champion what's right and to live and show those values in not only voice, but importantly, by actions. That's how I believe we make change. And for me, it's about changing our tomorrow. And changing our tomorrow to just to be a little bit better than today. Now, until 5 minutes ago, most of you wouldn't know who I am and even know my name. So to break the ice, I thought I'd share some of my personal background and a little about me. So what brings me here and what was my speak up and be brave moment? So the primary reason I'm here tonight is I work as an inclusion consultant, and my role, amongst other things, is to help clubs, community groups on their journey to become more inclusive, welcoming places for everyone. And that sounds all pretty straightforward. But it's fair to say that is not the career path I thought I'd ever be on 10 or 20 years ago. The path I was previously followed was a little removed from where I was now. I hail from the IT world. I was working in banking and finance, and it's not a profession often associated with social inclusion. And if you've been around for as long as me, remember the old greed is good mantra. That was my time in the industry. And speaking up and being loud, yep, we were all about that, but not so much the social inclusion side or helping others. But nonetheless, here I am today, Rob the IT guy, out of a dealing room floor, talking at a forum focusing on social inclusion. If you're thinking that's unusual, fair enough. But life as it does, for many, sometimes throws us a curveball, and this was mine. 13 years ago, my life changed. My son, who at the time was just 13 months old, and we've just moved back from Sydney, from that dealing room world, to Perth, where we grew up, and he contracted meningitis. It was the scariest and most stressful time of my life. And still to the day, it's hard to look back on. We spent months, day and night, in hospital, ICU, and for our family, life and time just stopped. Thankfully, my son survived his battle. But his and my family's path would forever be changed. Brad, he was left with various disabilities and challenges that he'd have to face that would not only impact his own life, it's impacted the lives of all of our family, but not all for the worse. At the time, I'll be honest, I was devastated, and it took me years to get back to a sense of normality, to accept the situation and even get out of the house sometimes. It was a challenge. But looking back now, as I can, that moment in time, that ultimately led me to why I'm here today. In that moment, I realised and began to better understand and value what it meant to be included, and sadly, in some cases, what it meant to be excluded. And I believe each of us in this room would have had their own moment when it came for you. And it's not that we're bad people. I don't think I was a bad person back then. Brad got ill. I just didn't have that realisation. And for that period prior, it just wasn't a focus in my personal life. And that was my realisation time that I needed to step up and have a go to try and be the voice, to speak up, not for myself, but for my son. I had to be brave. And like any parent, I wanted my kids to experience all the great things I enjoyed growing up, part of your neighbourhood, have mates, play sport, hang out, simply just to belong. So my actions to try and make change, to be my son's voice, were personal. I wanted to support him to try and make his journey through life a positive one, to just experience the things I took for granted. And from that experience, I started to speak up to pretty much anyone who'd listen. And if they wouldn't listen, I'd keep banging. To advocate for my son and others where change was needed and why it's so important. And over that journey came a number of ideas and opportunities, and one of which you'll hear a bit more about later tonight. But for me, speaking up and being brave was just about trying to make things a little bit better. For an ordinary guy, worked in IT, no experience, and in reality had no idea what he was doing, just having a go. To try and make his community a bit more inclusive and to try and help his son along the way. So in my case, the time to speak up and what brings me here today stemmed from that moment when my son fell ill 13 odd years ago. It changed my journey, and that's why I'm here. So as we begin with our first presenters, I'm going to ask everyone in this room for a little favour. My hope is after listening to all of these great guest speakers, there'll be just one thing you take away that resonates with you. Something that resonates with you personally. And one thing you can walk out of here tonight and commit to uphold in your day-to-day life. It could be you're living that commitment already, and what you're here tonight just reinforces that for you. Or maybe someone in this room is going to walk away with something new. They could be the person sitting right next to you. They could be the next one to take the microphone to speak up, lead change in their own community, and lead us on the new path to be brave and make change. Who knows? The next person to speak up, be brave and make change, could be sitting right next to you, or maybe it could be you. So that's enough from me. Oh, and I forgot to click the slide, but that's okay. I'd now like to call to the stage and introduce our first speaker, Lily Greasel. I hope I've got that right. As Lily makes her way up to the stage, just a little bit of background. Lily's a young, lived experience mental health advocate, encouraging the discussion of mental wellbeing and the normalisation of mental health topics. For 8 years of her life, she was an elite gymnast, training 36 hours a week with a goal to make the Olympics. The elite gymnastics environment and sports pressure took a major toll on her mental health, and realising that wasn't okay, she decided to make a change. Lily uses the power of social media, something my children enjoy, to connect with the wider community. And everyone's welcome to join a personal health journey. You belong to this world, and together we can break the stigma. In 2019, Lily began promoting and supporting Lifeline's work in the WA community. In 2022, she received an Aspire Young Citizen of the Year award. And Lily's currently completing a double degree in sports science and psychology at Murdoch, with the long-term goal to help other athletes achieve their dreams. Lily wants to make others in the community feel less alone in the world and help them to understand that feeling depressed, anxious, angry or lonely in life is a normal part of being human, and there's always hope. Lastly, as Lily prepares, I just want to highlight for the audience on here and online, Lily will be touching on subjects and experience around her personal journey and the impact that's had on her mental health. We're aware that that may cause stress, anxiety for some in the room. So if at any time you feel uncomfortable, please just take a moment to get some fresh air, and a staff member from the team will be there to support you. And one last fact on Lily, and she didn't write this in her bio, one of her many community initiatives, she was able to do 3,139 push-ups in 24 days to raise funds for Lifeline. And that's 130 push-ups per day. Now, I don't think I could do that in a year. Welcome, Lily.
Good evening. I hope everyone is doing absolutely fantastic tonight. So I do have two disclaimers just to mention before I start my presentation. The first one has already briefly been mentioned, but it is a bit of a trigger warning. So the content that I am going to discuss will be around mental health, and I am going to talk a little bit about suicide. So I understand that these topics can be upsetting or overwhelming to some people, so do feel free to leave the room if it does become too much for you. The second is that I'm an extremely anxious person, therefore please note that I'm not the most confident public speaker, and this is 100% the biggest audience I've ever stood in front of. So please do bear with me if my voice does get a bit shaky or I do need to take a breath. I do apologise in advance. I'm here today because this is a topic that I'm extremely passionate about and I believe needs to be shared. I'm currently studying psychology and sports science at Murdoch Uni, have a mental health first aid certificate and am recently just become the Lifeline WA Youth Ambassador. Thank you. Hi, I'm Lily and I'm mentally ill. Let me take you back on a journey 5 years ago. This is me, a 16-year-old girl, training 38 hours a week at the West Australian Institute of Sport for artistic gymnastics, attending multiple national training camps a year at the Australian Institute of Sport, and ideally only having 4 days break throughout the year. Another side note is that I was still attending school like any other normal kid would, except I'd miss 3 hours of it a day due to going to training. I can understand that to most kids, this would probably sound like a dream, but it was not. I still had the exact same expectations as every other child at school did. I just had to work a lot harder to keep up with the missed content from those hours of school I'd be absent. I'd been doing this since I was 8 years old, and it had become a place that I'd recognised very well. Gymnastics became the only sport I knew. I was confident in understanding the sport, the elite sporting world. I was comfortable in it, but it was not a safe space for me to be in. It was a place where I can confidently say I was emotionally abused. I was told I was never going to be good enough, never trying hard enough. I was overweight. I was not worth putting time into. These messages had been ingrained into my head since I was 8 years old. They'd become something I would hear so often that I began to believe everything I was being told. I would only ever believe that I had done something well if I got the validation of others. I would only feel proud of my achievements if someone else would tell me that they were proud of me. And for God's sake, I was a multiple national champion on apparatus and represented my country for that sport. But I still was never proud of myself. After 8 years of repeating the same cycle every day, I'd become so emotionally drained and physically fatigued. But why did I stay? I was confused and scared. I feared letting people down, feared leaving the only place I felt like I understood and the only place I thought I belonged. Fast forward 4 years, and here I am advocating for mental health awareness. I'm currently diagnosed with major depressive disorder, social anxiety, and perfectionism. And yes, I do take antidepressants every morning after I eat my breakfast just to try and get me through my day. Mental health and mental illnesses are so prevalent within society, and more people than you probably realise are currently battling the extra demons inside their head. However, for some reason, it is one of the tabooest subjects currently going around. I do believe that the world is making progress in supporting and understanding those with mental illness, but there is still an extremely long way to go. This is where my Instagram page, How to Be Well, began. When I first began struggling, I was so embarrassed and ashamed to speak up about what I was feeling. I had never heard of someone else feeling the same way or speak openly about their struggles mentally. Of course, I had heard of depression and suicide. I had even had one of my friends lose their life from suicide, but that was it. I didn't know the symptoms or that other people were experiencing the awful emotions that go with it. I was so scared of judgment from others that I just kept it all to myself. The moment I broke down in front of my mum changed my journey instantly and most likely saved my life. I felt the weight of the world lift off my shoulders and I felt safe again. The topics I talk about reflect on my journey and things that I've learned on the way. From issues with sleep and taking medication, but also empowering and encouraging others to start that conversation and to take mental health seriously, as it is an illness and an illness that can kill. The use of social media has been a form of therapy for me and hopefully a space where others can gain power about their journey and spread the awareness needed. I felt so lonely, overwhelmed with life, and was near the point of giving up. I knew that I was not the only person that felt this type of way, but for some reason it was so hard for me to talk about it. I felt so silenced and I felt so much weight on my shoulders. I knew something needed to change and that people around the world needed to feel comfortable talking about how they feel. Personally, I've experienced suicidal thoughts and ideations, and at times they've almost become very real. I would get extremely irritated and frustrated about how intense the thoughts would get because I knew it wasn't really the reality of what I wanted. I still get those days where the thoughts come back, where I feel useless, unworthy, ugly, a burden, and that there is no place for me in the world. But thanks to the amazing support system I have around me, they can refocus my thoughts on what reality really is. I've been to the emergency room in hospital because of my thoughts. I see a psychologist frequently, and I try to be open with the people around me. Reaching out for help is the one thing that's going to save you. Don't be afraid to talk about how you're feeling. It's always a better option for someone else to be aware of your emotions. Depression truly is a silent killer because there is not any obvious visible symptoms to the eye. Most mentally ill people have learnt how to put on an act when they are in public, so you would never really know what's going on underneath the surface. Therefore, to prevent suicide, we have to consciously check in on those we love and be open to having a real conversation with them. And we have to encourage those we care about to be honest with their emotions and to not be afraid. It's okay not to be okay, and together we can create hope. Having both anxiety and depression can be one of the most mentally frustrating things, so please understand that we are trying our best. Being depressed isn't just a choice. People don't choose to be sad, unmotivated, tired, etc. It's a real illness, just like any other illness in the body. So please stop telling people with depression to just be happy. It doesn't help, it only makes us feel more guilty, more angry and sadder. All we ask is to be listened to and reassured that we will be okay, because we will be, but it can be hard to remember sometimes. Give them a hug and let them know you care. Just please, please, please stop telling us to just be happy. It's wanting to sleep all day, but not being able to keep still. It's feeling like something bad is going to happen, but not having the energy to do something about it. Your body is burning on the outside, but frozen cold on the inside. It's the need for constant reassurance, but not being motivated enough to work for it. The contradictions of both illnesses exhaust people to the end, constantly going back and forth in emotions to the point where they want to just pull their hair out. I'm one of those people. I toss and turn at night trying to find some sort of compromise for both arguments. I'm in a never-ending fight inside my head, and sometimes it gets too much, only for a chance to recharge and start again. So please be patient with people. Sometimes it just gets too much and we shut down. We don't mean it, it's just what we need to do. If someone approaches you about their mental health, it can seem like a daunting thing to respond to. So what do? We're never truly taught how to respond or react to someone when they tell you they are depressed or anxious or any other type of feeling. Therefore, creating a society where people are never truly comfortable in how to respond. However, in my opinion, it is an easy thing. Most of the time, it is human instinct to feel like we have to offer advice, but in fact, it is the opposite. Most people dealing with mental health issues just want someone that will listen to them with an open mind and embrace them. It just happens that you are the person that they feel most comfortable to be honest with. So just simply listen to them and offer your support. You don't need to give advice or feel the need to relate to them. All they want is for someone to say, "I'm here for you," or "What do you feel you need right now?" However, you should never promise them that you won't tell someone else. Simple things like this are what they need to hear. So just be open to listening to how they are feeling and offer them support. You are not responsible for taking on their troubles and giving them advice. You're there to listen. That's the best comfort you can give. To summarise my message, here are 5 myths about mental illness that I believe need to be broken. The first is that people with mental illness are weak. The second is that medications make you lose your emotions. The third is people who seek therapy can't help themselves. Number 4 is people that speak openly about their mental health and suicidal ideations are attention seekers. And number 5 is mental health should be private and should not be spoken openly about. To finalise, here are 5 things you can implement into your program that I wish I had when I was training as an athlete, which will better the mental well-being. The first is to encourage athlete bonding. One of the most beneficial things I believe that I had when I was training that got me through all those tough times was the strong bond that I had with the other girls there, and I don't believe I would have gotten as far as I did without them. So athlete relationships are really important. Build trust between coaches and athletes. You want your athlete to be able to feel like they can trust you and be open with you and not feel like you're going to judge them if they come to you with an issue. Ask your athletes how they are really doing and actually listen to them. There were times when I was training where we would do surveys every morning reflecting on how we were feeling, how we slept, and they would look at them, but they would just completely disregard them. So we would tell them how we were feeling, but they would do nothing about it. Your feedback doesn't always have to be negative. So constructive criticism is always good, but you also want to give positive feedback to your athletes because athlete motivation is going to come from when they feel like they are capable of doing something and that they can achieve something. So telling them that they're doing something well is just going to increase their motivation and want to be a part of the club. I've been taught to use the sandwich approach. So the bread is something that they've done really well, so that's the top. The middle is something that they can work on, and then again finish again with something that they've done well so that can stay in their mind. And don't neglect an athlete. So if you have an injured athlete, treat them all the same. Give your injured athlete the same respect that you would give to a normal athlete, because they want to still feel like they're being cared for and they are an important part of the program. We are not weird for needing a little extra support, and we are not weird for reaching out for the help we need. Thank you.
Thanks, Lily. And Lily let me in a little secret before she got up here tonight. That was her first time presenting, and Lily, you did a brilliant job. So put your hands together. Well done, Lily. I know you were nervous, but you nailed it. Certainly this generation, things I took out of it, I was a father of young kids, teenagers, that I think is a lot tougher than when I grew up. The expectations to be perfect, be it school, be it sport, what you wear, it's pretty tough. And as Sean said, just being kind to each other and supporting each other, it's so important. So thanks for sharing your journey with us. Next, I'd like to introduce and welcome to the stage our next speaker to share her story, Penny Tanner-Hoth. Penny's a life member of her childhood club, Murdoch Uni Melville Football Club, where she plays and coaches what she calls football, what I call soccer. Being a mum after a long career representing WA and some time for Australia, inspired a new love to mentor young people in their journey in life. Penny now hosts the longest running weekly football, soccer, radio show in Australia, where stakeholders are given an opportunity to share their knowledge with listeners in the local community. For Penny, it's a lifetime passion. Living in the area, holding a degree in sports science, a Football Media Award for services to the local and Australian football community, and having authored a book on women in football. All add up to a lifelong relationship with the Melville community and sport. Welcome, Penny.
My speech is done. This is pretty much all about me. The World Game. Janine, over to you. I'm also a first-timer, so I'm very nervous. I'm going to call this speech my superpower, and I hope by the end of it I've got to that superpower. All right. Up top one. Cool, thank you. I'm very content with my life. I've loved, lived, mothered and will die wanting for nothing. Life is about passing on what you've learnt, and I hope I can show you a lot of great things that I've learnt and will help you find your superpower. A few things about me. A lot of soccer in that. Mum FC, my club, the hat, goes everywhere with me. When my club merged with Murdoch University in 2019, it became a whole mouthful of Melville City Football Club and Murdoch University. So Murdoch University, Melville City Football Club, shorten that to Mum FC, which is me. I'm a mum. I was the only mum at the time. No one else could see that was funny, right? So it took a few years before there was some girls and mums playing, so I felt pretty cool about that. This baby here is my beastie. A couple of years ago, and the old family wagon moved on. It was like time to invite me into the household and out into the four-wheel drive track. So my daughter, who's now 15, absolutely hates it and will refuse to come with me after the first trip where we went up and down and got stuck and went up 45-degree everything. And man, I loved it. It was great. New lease on life, but she's like, I'm never doing that again with you, Mum. I'm cool with that. Found my own space. So, these two pictures here, I love these pictures. Bottom, that's me when I'm 13. This is me when I'm a lot older. But 40 years later, I've got a whole bunch of the same ladies, and I'm sitting next to the same person that I am there. That was not planned. That's just how we sat down and played football again 40 years later together. Pretty cool. Moving on in my life, I seem to do things in decades worth. So radio I started when I was 13, no, not 13, 18, pretty young. And I've been doing it now for 35 years, and I love it. I can speak to lots of people on radio, and I can hide behind one of these, but there's not one of these there. So I'd like to get better at this part. The show's the longest running soccer show in Australia. I think I'm the only female hosting. Back then I definitely was. I think I am still now. Lots of podcasts and things like that, but a live radio show put together on a day a week is something pretty special. I love doing it, and I speak to a lot of people that way, and I get to know a lot of people and share their stories, which is fantastic. I can be playing football and a referee comes up on the soccer field, because I still play, and he shakes my hand and I'm like, "Who are you?" besides the referee. And he goes, "I'm listening to your radio show." And I'm like, how cool is that? So hopefully that's developed a pretty good relationship. I've never got sent off yet, so that's good. I was on L plates for a while with the radio gig after being thrown in the deep end. It really was a deep end station, 100 FM. It was located in the old Fremantle Council building near the Stirling Bridge, and it really was a dungeon. It was small, it was down a sharp flight of winding stairs to the single studio the team crammed into. That was definitely a deep end for me. I was the only female and the youngest member of the team, and I was just thrown in to sink or swim. Winding down those stairs really terrified me and made me nervous at first, but I also loved it. The challenge of doing something new was inviting, and being captain of my state soccer team at the time, I toured a lot, and I was totally excited to talk about soccer. So they got me back week after week, and I talked about soccer to anyone that wanted to listen. I think the nervous excitement thing is just something that's part of my psyche. I step onto a soccer park and I'm nervous and I'm excited and I love it. It's a test of your learning, and I love that and I live for it. That's me now, feeling pretty comfortable. And this is some of the guests I have in the studio, some of my team. They change from week to week. 2 hours we talk football every Saturday in the morning. And I have people from other clubs, I have national coaches, I have news presenters, all kinds of people come and have a chat. They chat on the phone or they come into the studio. A couple of people that have come through my program made me feel pretty proud. One was a very encyclopedic Anno Dong who was 16. She escaped from Uganda with her family. And sport and radio is something that she found comfortable with me, and an opportunity to find herself. She now works with Football Australia in media, and she trains young footballers in media and helps them be the best they can be. And there's another young lady as well. This young lady, Miranda Templeman. She's about 17. She plays for the Young Matildas, which is Australian women's young soccer team. And she wanted to learn a little bit more about what affects football, so she came in, wanted to learn. And now she's being taught by Anne in media at Football Australia, and hopefully she'll be at the Women's World Cup. Hope so. And I'll go like that. That'd be pretty cool. My take home out of all of this is something Anne said to me: allow people the space to find themselves. So hopefully I'm doing that. Excuse me one sec. playing football. When I was 15, I tried out for the under-15 junior state team. Didn't make it. I was a pretty good footballer, soccer player. I was taken aside and told I was too cheeky. I was, totally. But to get told when I was 15 and I wanted to make a state team, that hurt. But doubled my efforts. Went back and tried for the women's state team. And I made it. And I'm the longest serving state team captain. Not now, when I was younger. And I got to play against some Australian players in that team. I worked hard. To have the opportunity to be included in that was incredible. And I appreciate it. I always want more out of life. I want to grow, and that means testing your limits, overcoming fear. I'm still very scared at doing this. I am inwardly showing lots of fear. But that's part of growing. After playing football for about 7 years, I wanted next level football, and it couldn't be found here in Western Australia. I went to university, I studied sports science, got my degree, business, diploma, degrees in this, that and whatever. And while I was studying, I was selected to play for the Australian team. I went to Canada. It cost me $5,000 at the time. I worked my bottom off to get there. But unlike sports now at top level, like Matildas, Australian women's soccer team, you're flown here and there, and the privilege is paid for by Australia. I was the vice captain of the Australian team. I was very proud about that. When we went away with the team, we got whacked, we got hammered. We played against people like Mia Hamm, who's an icon of American football soccer. They still call it soccer there, actually. But I come away thinking that I could do better. I reached out to clubs in Europe, United Kingdom, over 12 months. I wrote to them. This was before mobile phones and internet. So there was a lot of translating happening. There's a lot of my friends doing late night phone calls for me. And I got some trials over there and went and played football over there. I was pretty emotional when I got there. There was more tears. I was at Milan train station going blub, blub, blub. Mum and Dad blubbed back to me, funnily enough. But gave me support that I need, so I played some amazing football. When I came back here to Australia, stepped back into playing state team football, and I got selected to play for Australia. Being interviewed by SBS. Pretty cool. That's my daughter. She's about 15 now, she's about 8 there. Same cheek, can you tell by the stance? It's crazy. I went to a talent ID camp with Tom Simoni, the national coach at the time, and I was selected to play and train with some pretty amazing players, my idols. I didn't make the cut. And again, that hurt, but I understood. I still had a ways to go in my life. And that's cool, another challenge, got to step up again. So, after trials in Europe, coming back and playing the best football I'd ever played, still had some growing to do. Living in Western Australia, it's a tough gig. It costs money to get players to the other side of Australia. It costs money to get out of Australia and play football. And you have to be better than players elsewhere. Same with other sports. So I got it. Time to move on in my life, I think. I made something of that though. The coach at the time, Tom Samani, is a pretty good guy. He had to tell me I didn't make the cut. So I was doing it on my radio. So I said, "Hey Tom, can I come on and be a guest on my show?" That was after I finished crying, of course. And he did. And that was a few years ago. So he and I are pretty decent friends now, and we talk a bit on the radio. He's coached the New Zealand national team, he's been to America, he's back in Australia coaching now. But there was a good thing that came out of it. Take home is make the most of your opportunities. I got some opportunities out of that. I played good football, I met some amazing people, I travelled the world. And then, time to move on. Moving on was becoming a coach, becoming a mentor, becoming a role model. Didn't think I'd ever do those things. I think when you're an athlete, probably pretty selfish about things. You just focus on your own thing and becoming the best you can be. Love's in my life, my daughter, and my business. I own a manufacturing firm, run the family business, 4 generations with Rose, my daughter, in there. And also got a hardware business up and going now, which is doing pretty well for itself. And this is on one of our soccer tours. I've travelled with teams all over the world, and Rose, since she's been around, has always come with me. This is one of the mountains in New Zealand, and the Tibetan Prime Minister was travelling there at the time. Don't think that's him, but he was up there at the same time, literally 10 foot away from me, so I'm going to brag because no one can tell, right? But that was pretty cool, and to stand on a mountain next to a Tibetan monk, yeah, that's pretty amazing. And this is my daughter when she's younger. I've been her coach for a while, and she came and played in my football team last year for the first time on the right there, and she gathered some respect for her mother, that mum's a strong person. She might not always run faster, but she's got a good constitution, and to play women's football as a kid, then you have to have a little bit more than just a cockiness about you. You have to have something else. Coaching, good team spirit. I like to think that I can help my girls get confidence in themselves and play better as a team. Maybe not be the best soccer player, not be a Sam Kerr, but contribute to the team and feel like they can speak up when they need to, be included. I've been coaching for about 10 years now, and the more I coach, the more I learn, the more I discover about myself. We always have a wind-up at the end of every season, and girls bring some food, we play a friendly match with the parents, recognise individuals and all the volunteers. I always end up crying there too. There's a lot of crying in this story, isn't it? I love those kids. After a season watching them learn to like each other, work as a team and work for each other, they become a family, my family. Then we end the journey. Of course I'm going to cry about that. I never get through the speech. There's always breaks. It makes me nervous. But I like to let everyone know they had something special to give to the team. That can take a while. But everyone listens, and each player's journey is the team's journey. The take home from this is that I recognise it's part of me, and it shows how much I invest into my role and the team. My daughter, now 15, is an immense force of mental and physical energy, thoroughbred with grace and skill. She said to me, "Mum, you've created a comfortable space where the team feels they can speak up." Well, that was pretty cool for a 15-year-old. I started to think maybe a little something of that should be fostered. I'm still reeling from the fact that she gave me a compliment and she's 15. These are people that inspire me. That's Sam Kerr, national Australian footballer, now playing professionally in England. Got a $1 million contract with Chelsea. One of the coaches there is Tanya Oxtoby, whom I played football with here in West Australia, and she's now moved to Chelsea and is probably in a $1 million contract along with Sam. look how high that athlete is jumping. It's amazing. That's passion and inspiration right there. This guy here, he's got crazy talent, a little bit of aggression and silliness about him. Leighton Hewitt, a lot of passion in there. That's what inspires me. But I need to be able to have something that inspires others. It's got to be a superpower. It's got to be something special. When Rose said what she did to me, I thought, well, maybe I just keep creating opportunities for the kids. They feel comfortable, they feel confident, they can feel like they want to be part of the team, they can get better. I never applied any pressure on Rose to play football, never. I totally loved if she would say, Mum, I'm going to become a Matilda. Whew, that'd be pretty cool. Nah. But in the last 12 months, she said, yeah, I might try some state team trials, Mum. So that's identification of be the best of her age group. That's pretty cool. My mum's advice to me was keep a straight back, don't head the ball and be humble. I'm still working on number 3. My young charges come and play football, not because they're good footballers. They come because they feel welcome. They stay because they feel respected. They speak because they have been given a space where they feel comfortable. I've worked damn hard personally to be included in things and succeed. I'm pretty ambitious. But not everyone has the opportunity to even start that journey. So a little something actually snuck up on me, like becoming a coach and a mum. Maybe it's not so little, maybe it should be shared. It's not really a superpower. It's about being included and how that makes you feel. Empowered. Empowered to start your journey. Now I'm going to redirect. Something to finish on that's so cute. My daughter's 2 rabbits. The dude on my right, he's big, he eats all my daisies. He's going to become Stu one day if I can ever catch him. And this dude here, he's got the biggest ears. I'm never going to catch him. Double trouble. That's me. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Penny. The first time, it's always the worst. Look, you said you had fear up here. I just think you were really brave, so well done. And for me personally, I was so glad you continually used the word soccer, so I've had an influence on you. But talking about influence, you've obviously, in your voice, you could hear you've had an influence and connected to the people you've been part of their lives on your journey, and it came through how proud you are. It's personal for you. And when it's personal, you care a lot more. And those that you support, I'm sure they know that. So well done on your journey and keep doing what you're doing. Now, we're going to give you all 5 minutes just to powder your noses. Don't steal all the sausage rolls because I haven't eaten yet. There's a little timer up here. So if you need to grab something, please do, and we'll kick straight back off after the break. Okay, if I could just ask if you could resume your seats, please. I'll just let everybody get their last hot chip. Thank you. Okay, we'll get things straight back underway. And I'm going to welcome to the stage our next speaker for our forum, Mr. Atul Garg. Now, for each presenter, come up please, Atul. Thank you, Tom. For each presenter tonight, we ask they provide a brief background on themselves. And Atul, I noted, had left a few things out. And in this modern world of the internet, thanks to Mr. Google, I came across a few facts that I'm going to share that you maybe didn't want to. So Atul is a man of many talents. Prior to emigrating to Australia, Atul enjoyed a long and decorated career with the Indian Navy. This included playing a major role in commissioning of an aircraft carrier. And I share a common pathway with Atul as he's a little like me. He was involved in IT. And I suggest at a significantly higher level than myself. In his role, Atul was responsible for commissioning the world's first local area network on a sailing ship. And that was long before the days of Wi-Fi, 5G or mobile internet. This was wires and cables and big black boxes. And Atul, in his role, was leading the world. A man of many talents, Atul also turned his hand to music and wrote that ship's song. Which apparently was broadcast at meal times and during official functions. Atul retired from the Navy in 1993 and migrated to Australia, where he soon became a significant community volunteer in and around the Melville area. Atul has assisted in providing food and support for COVID-impacted communities, been a key contributor to the Federation of Indian Associations, WA, and sits as chair of Neighbourhood Watch, a group he's been a part of for no less than 29 years. He was also recognised as the Mayor's Valued Citizen of the Year, as well as Neighbourhood Watch as the OAM Volunteer of the Year. Welcome, Atul. Here, you want to stand here? Hang on a second, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. And thanks to City of Melville, Chiara and Laura for inviting me for today's Inclusion Forum. It's a great topic and very relevant in today's society. I'll be mostly speaking about the contributions of Fiawa in this area. Before I do that, firstly, I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners on whose land we conduct today's ceremonies. Next, I would like to introduce some of my committee members who are here. I have Sonalji. Could you please stand up? She is the head of Fiawa's domestic violence team. Firozji, could you please stand up? He is head of bereavement team and also the elders inclusions team. We conduct lots of programs for elders, community elders, to make sure they remain engaged with the community. And I have Mehrukji. Mehrukji, would you please stand up? She's in charge of all the cultural activities we do and the mega events that we do. I'll speak about those. One of them is the Australia Day and India Day, 26 January, which is a great coincidence. Please sit down. Thank you very much. And I'll be failing in my duty if I don't acknowledge Minu, brother Minu. He was in my Neighbourhood Watch committee. He retired a few years ago. Most of the people here would have seen me in some way or the other in newspapers and the City of Melville Communications as head of the Neighbourhood Watch. So in this area, I'm generally known as the crime fighter and the security man. But today's topic is different. It's the other volunteering that I do. But I'm very thankful Brother Minu is here today. Thank you, sir. You've been a great committee member. Ladies and gentlemen, I created FIAWA about 5 years ago. This top picture is, actually I didn't give it, as was said recently, just a few minutes ago. It was picked up from the internet. I was head of the electrical department, chief engineer of the mighty aircraft carrier, after India took it over from England after the Falklands War. But that has been one of my most coveted things that I've done in my life, and I'm very proud of that bit. This one? Which one is that? This one, yeah? All right, thank you. Now this picture is from FIAWA. So I have the Premier and the current chair and the two deputy chairs. Both of them are also now members of the Office of Multicultural team of the Minister. So we all work together to do exciting things in WA. Now today's presentation is mainly going to be what is FIAWA, what FIAWA does for the community, why belonging to FIAWA is important to me, where and why do I volunteer and how this is added to my life, what inclusion means to me, and finally practical tips for people on how to be more inclusive. The FIAWA, which is actually the Federation of Indian Associations of Western Australia, was created about 5 years ago. It was created as an umbrella body to do those things which had never been done. Indians have been here in Western Australia for about 50 years. It was created to do those things like management of bereavement, management of domestic violence, social isolation of elders. Normally we will find that all elders in all parties would be sitting in a corner, nobody talking to them. So to manage their welfare and also to manage the welfare of disabled and sick, such things were never done before. So we thought that we should create an organization to look after these areas. Now we have 66 member organizations representing different states of India or different cultures in India. FIAWA is also part of a similar network because all the states have similar federations, and we work together whenever there is some common area of interest where all of us should participate. We do that together. What FIAWA does for community, and everything we do is all free for community. So many times I've been told, why don't I charge $5 or something for various reasons. But I've always felt whatever we do, let it remain very inclusive. That's our way of making sure it's inclusive. Those sections of the community and society who cannot afford, they should be able to approach us freely all the time and use our services. This is a list of things: bereavement, domestic violence, social management of social exclusion, which is actually now social inclusion, assistance of overseas students and new migrants. You'll be amazed to see so many students commit suicide when things like this happen to them, that they fail in the exam, they lose their small little job they had, and they don't know what to do, and they're kicked out from the tenant. So it is important that students are also looked after, just like new migrants. We do conduct regular games of badminton and golf, and we do high technology symposiums, regular dance classes, yoga classes, and so on. Why belonging to FIAWA is important to me. Now we have a team of experts in each area. Our motivation increases when we get comments like this. Some of these cases are so sensitive. Even if I told you the case, it'll not be right for me. But they equate us to God every now and then when their problem gets solved. Somebody had a hospital bill of $90,000. It was not his fault, but some doctor or somebody made a mistake, and the reason is the bill eventually became $90,000. Whenever we help such cases, they really equate the management committee to God. So we feel very proud whenever we have a success like this. There are hundreds of success stories, but accordingly there are hundreds of challenges that we have faced. But we are very proud of what we do. In COVID, we ran 5 free food stalls for 3 months, and to all elderly and all the people who are sick or impacted, who could not help themselves in getting food or groceries. We actually did that for them. And also, when we found that we also gave food to the doctors and nurses who were at hospitals. We actually took the packed food and also delivered there. The next slide is Fiawa bereavement services. Now we have actually contracts and MOUs with the service providers, because sometimes, now this is an area nobody wants to do anything about it. When people die, some community members cannot afford a funeral, so we will do a little bit of fundraising, and we'll make sure whatever help we can provide. And also sometimes the body has to be dispatched to India or some other country, so we will provide assistance in that area. Now, the next slide is the domestic violence. Now, this is an area, unfortunately, not to be proud of. Out of the 300 odd cases in Western Australia, the police told me that 100 cases were Indians. So certainly not a thing to be very proud of, but we had to do something about it. We had to manage it. So we formed a team, and the leader of our team is here. I just introduced to you. And basically, you can see the police. We were represented by the police, the Department of Home Affairs, and all the leaders of the community, and the domestic violence victims. The domestic violence victims normally don't like to come in front, but in some cases they even made videos, and they sent us the videos because they felt so grateful that their issues were resolved and they were helped. Now this is yoga. Now for seniors, we conduct yoga and laughter yoga. To get involved seniors in various things is a new thing. Even seniors found that for so many years, for 50 odd years, there was nothing for them. So we got several programs. We take them out for picnic. We conduct yoga, and one thing they enjoy is laughter yoga. You probably know that laughter yoga is just laugh for no reason. Ha ha ha. And all the community seniors and elders, they just enjoy that thing very much. And we also try to arrange a transport as much as possible, so that in those cases where they cannot drive themselves, they can participate. Now, this is a weekly fitness class. Now, what is a fitness class doing in a community charity organization? Because lots of these people were mentally ill, or people who are not, who are alone in their families, or people who didn't have any other activity to do. So we conduct these classes absolutely free of cost, and they're immensely popular. They've been attended by ministers and mayors, and we are very proud that there was a time when we had 5 mental health people from hospital and their 5 carers who were attending these classes. So these classes are, you can see, they're very popular, and in fact the hall didn't have enough space, so we had to go to a bigger hall. This is a thing which we call India Day. Now, India Day is a chance for all the 66 organizations, all the member organizations, to participate and showcase the cultures of different states and different cultures. Now, this is the one which I mentioned to you about COVID. We provided food from 5 different outlets, and we made sure that anybody who needed any kind of help in terms of buying groceries or food was helped at that time. Now, this is the great Australia Day and India Day, Indian Republic Day together. Now, this is a great coincidence in Australia and in India. That 26th January is a national day for both countries. So we obviously celebrate this, and we celebrate in terms of flag hoisting of both countries, and also all cultural items and fusion items, particularly wherever things we can fuse the Western culture into the Indian culture. Those sort of items we promote more, and also Aboriginals. We had this time we had 3 Aboriginal items along with the Indian items. This is just one of those dances at the same event. This is the Aboriginal participation. So we did learn as much as possible, and we danced and participated along with the Aboriginals. And we do this every year, on every 26th January. Now, where and why do I volunteer? Volunteering has brought meaning and purpose to my life while increasing my self-esteem and well-being. Volunteering has often relieved me of stress and possibly depression. Volunteering has had positive impact on my community and earned me a lot of respect with great all-round relationships. Volunteering has given me tremendous sense of achievement. In Neighborhood Watch, I have reduced crime by 26%. It's a university statistics. In Prostate Cancer Foundation, I have raised awareness and funding to achieve better support for sick and suffering. I'm Prostate Cancer Foundation's ambassador. I was nominated ambassador as last year after 13 years of campaigning. In Fiava, I have effectively and directly managed bereavement, isolation, domestic violence, elder abuse, and migrant problems. There are several other organizations where I play service role or leadership role, as I had dedicated my life to community work some years ago. What social inclusion means to me. The social inclusion has been well defined, so I won't go through all that. It can be due to any reason. Somebody is disabled, or somebody doesn't know a particular language, or somebody is too old, or somebody is from a different culture which doesn't match with your culture. There can be several reasons for social inclusion. In my life, I try to encourage social inclusion at all levels. Whether it is making more members of Fiava or getting more communities to participate at my temple, the magnificent Perth Hindu temple, that's my biggest achievement, I would say, in Western Australia. I led the construction and consecration of the magnificent Perth Hindu temple in Canning Vale. If you get a chance, please have a look at it. The stone carving is absolutely out of the world. I get more seniors to join my yoga or laughter yoga and create disabled facilities. Like recently I modified, or rather I facilitated modification of the temple hall so that the disabled wheelchair could come in there. And of course, charity always begins at home. I've been looking after my wife, visually handicapped wife, who was declared legally blind 23 years ago. But she still, for everything, she comes along with me, and she participates in all the events wherever I volunteer. Practical tips. How to be more inclusive. This will apply to different places in different ways. But it's obvious that when you look after elderly, disabled and sick, you automatically create respectful activities and events for them. The elderly need our help in organizing a safe bus, food, and they'll happily come along anywhere. So as long as the bus will pick them up from a suitable spot where they can either drive themselves or their son or daughter could drop them, and we have organized food for them. We took one bus to York. Last time we took one bus to Bunbury, and the in charge was Firozi, who is sitting, a committee member who is sitting here. So they would be absolutely happy to jump in and come along and participate. It's just that somebody has to take the right kind of safe initiative. But our biggest strength lies in the fact that all our activities are absolutely free, including migrant assistance, domestic violence, student help, free food, free dancing, free yoga, free picnics, and so on. This is a big factor in getting people together, as the weaker sections of the society do not need to spend big dollars for inclusion. All the help, service and fun is provided at no cost with help from grants and sponsors. My last advice to all volunteers is whatever you do, never forget to have fun yourself. That's more important. Because whenever you do things for other people, it's very important that you look after yourself also in terms of your health and in terms of your family's health, and you always be very considerate to your team members, but at the same time never forget you yourself are very important and you must always look after yourself first, enjoy yourself, have fun. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Atul. You're obviously a very busy man. Do you sleep? Sometimes. You obviously as well get a lot out of volunteering and giving back in your community, and a big part of your life. It's very clear that you enjoy all that. And I did note, and I'm a little bit jealous, not too many people have a temple that they've been involved with, so well done on that. But I took out of it as well, like having fun in what you're doing and everything you're doing. It's not what we do for a living, it's what we do for enjoyment, and that's important. And I think through volunteering, when you do it with passion, you get far more back than you can ever give. So well done, congratulations. Okay, we'll keep banging along, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome our next speaker to the stage. Please call him a friend, and he's just from down the road from the East Fremantle Junior Footy Club. Can you welcome Matt Marinovich? As Matt makes his way forward, Matt's a proud husband and father of one girl and 3 boys. He's lived his life in Bicton, other than a short 10-year sojourn, which he spent in the UK, the Middle East and Southeast Asia. Growing up and going to school in the area, like most kids, Matt played a lot of sport, with summers spent jumping off Blackwall Reach and fishing at the Bicton Baths. Winters were spent playing and watching local footy in the Freo area, and Matt now enjoys watching his kids get into their own sporting activities, and it's most recently led him on a journey seeking to create the same sense of social inclusion for them that he experienced as a child growing up. Matt's actively involved in the local community through his involvement with the local footy club, as well as with his kids' primary school. Matt's childhood and travels have led him to the firm belief that he lives in the best place in the world, and I'm looking forward to hearing his story tonight. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you to Kiara and Laura for having me along tonight. Really appreciate it. I hope to tell my story to contribute to the really inspirational stories I've heard earlier tonight. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about my version of inclusion and what it means to me. So without further ado, am I going the wrong way? Oh, okay. All right, so my story begins really, and it revolves around my kids, as Rob mentioned. With my wife, who's here tonight, hi Holly, we embarked on a journey of living overseas for a number of years, like Rob mentioned. During that period, we had our daughter Stella, who you can see on the left side, and then Joe. And Joe was born in Singapore. Joe is really the basis of this story I'm going to tell tonight, and he's a special kid for many reasons, but he's kind of the inspiration behind the inclusion that Rob talked about. So when Joe was born, like all the kids, all your children, like any parent here, all you want is really at its heart for them to be happy and healthy, and everything that comes beyond that is just a bonus, more or less. And the same was for Joe when he was born. So Joe's first year was relatively uneventful from a child's perspective. He was learning to walk and talk and do all the other things that normal kids do, and was making very good progress. I have some more. So Joe continued to grow and thrive like all our other kids, and we're very proud of him, like all our children. Here he is, I think, on the probably in Thompson's Bay somewhere in Rottnest, having a fat old time on the beach, while his parents had a swim probably. It was on or around his first birthday that my wife initially noticed that he wasn't using his right hand and his right leg less so, but particularly his right side of his body. So, little things like when you'd go to hold his right hand and put some food, hold his left hand and put food in front of him, rather than pick it up with his right hand, he'd go to pick it up with his mouth, and things like that, which clearly were a bit strange for kids. And so things moved very quickly from there, and we had all manner of medical appointments and scans and appointments with physios. It was all highly stressful and very traumatic at the time, which led to the eventual diagnosis that he had cerebral palsy. He was actually right-sided hemiplegic. So for those who don't know, it means they have essentially paralysis down one side of their body, which was caused by a stroke that he had either at or sometime near the time of birth. Freak occurrence, initially you search for reasons why it may have happened. Was it something we did? Was it something we didn't do? Was it something that happened during pregnancy or birth? But eventually, you're at peace with the fact that it was just, the statistics tell you 1 in 1,000, and we were the 1 in 1,000. So that obviously rocked our world in a big way and was, like I said, pretty traumatic, and you start going through processing what that all means, which we did. So Joe continued to grow and make us very proud. And after the initial shock of understanding that you have a child with a disability, and even saying those words out loud, I remember was quite hard at the time. You start to think about what his life will look like. And so we often discuss that. And we resolved very early on that we would treat Joe no differently to our other kids, both Stella and the 2 other kids we then had after Joe, quite soon after Joe, it must be said. So we resolved to treat Joe the same. That Joe wouldn't be treated like someone who was, disabled, other than the fact that he needed extra care when doing basic tasks. I remember the doctor told us very early on that he may or may not walk, he may or may not talk. It was really a case, because cerebral palsy is such a diverse and broad diagnosis. A very small brain injury can either lead to very severe effects, but in other cases, very large damage of the brain, and you could barely notice the impact. So we essentially were in a waiting game, and at each year and month that he grew, we watched with great interest to see how he developed. And my wife also reminded me quite recently that one of the first things I said when I learnt was, I hope I can still kick the footy with him, which was interesting based on my talk tonight, and talked a lot about my upbringing as well. All right, so as Joe grew older, and we watched with great interest the things that he did. I'm not sure if this will actually play. It's supposed to be a video. Is it going to be a video? Okay, so there's Joe in the blue T-shirt on the left, making his way down the racetrack. Go, Joe. If you had... go, Joe. If you had the volume there, you would have heard my wife and my mother screaming simultaneously, go, Joe, go, Joe. So, as you can see there, highly inspirational and really pleasing to see Joe in his environment and doing really well. I'm very happy, just happy to be out there competing. His determination and his ability really put him ahead of where we thought he would be and made us very proud, and he continued to do that, and he still does that today. But inclusiveness became something we thought more about. So clearly there, Joe's competing and running against his mates, but it's quite evident that he's different, and he's actually much slower, and he couldn't compete. But in his mind, he was still very happy. But you've also got to consider, he, in his mind, doesn't really think of himself as disabled. He thinks himself as just like one of his mates. Why am I so slow? Why am I not as fast as my friends? And you try to teach them and give them the education at a very young age that you are a bit different, but that's okay. And you're going to struggle, but you try your hardest and compete, and we'll be proud of you nonetheless. So you go from that kind of extreme to the next extreme, where we continue to enjoy his progress. And here's the case, I think, of the next year, where the teacher who was in charge of the starting gun decided to give Joe a sneaky head start, to give him the sense that he might actually be, so a nice healthy head start against his mates there. Yeah, so look, good on him. I think he even crossed first, maybe. Yeah, well done, Dawn. All right, yeah. So the reason I'm showing that is because on one extreme you had him finishing far behind his friends. The next year you had the teacher giving him a very healthy head start, and he, essentially wins very easily. What that showed us was that, that's probably, although it's great for Joe, one, it just when he was old, he certainly realised that he was given a head start, and that also creates its own feeling of, do I need a head start to be able to compete? But for the other kids who are also competing, that's also unfair for them. This kid gets a head start. How come when do I get my head start in life as well? So there was this gap that Joe kind of fell between, where he was able-bodied enough to be in a normal class with his schoolmates and to keep up in that sense, but at the same time, he wasn't disabled enough to then go and compete against other disabled kids, because he actually was quite able-bodied. So we started searching for options to give Joe that sense of inclusion, where he had the opportunity to compete and to play sport and do things like that without feeling like either A, he was too different, or B, that he was given too much of a head start and too many advantages to be able to just do what other kids did. So my mind immediately went to what I loved doing as a kid, playing sport, playing in teams, and for me, Aussie rules footy, not soccer, sorry Penny, was where I sort of started to focus on, and how I could maybe, and Joe at this point, I should add, was very excited about kicking the footy with me, and we're having a great time and doing all those things, but throwing him into a footy environment in a normal club situation that I was used to, I thought was probably going to be quite daunting for him. So by chance, during one of our routine and numerous encounters with the physio and OT, we came out of the room and I saw this poster. I think it's coming up. Right, Star Kick. So Rob will know this picture very well. So Rob Gearson, I don't know, I didn't catch your opening preamble, Rob, but Rob was the absolute godfather of the Star Kick program in Coolbinia. And I saw this poster and I thought, right, straight away that spoke to me, because what it said to me was there was an opportunity and an avenue for Joe to potentially play footy in an environment which maybe supported kids who didn't have all the skills and abilities of other kids. So I took Joe along to Coolbinia, which, living in this area, as you know, is not a small drive. But I did it after work. I remember it was quite raining, it was cold, but Joe was pretty pumped. We went along there and he absolutely loved it. I mean, the look on his face, just the enjoyment he had of competing and playing with other kids who are of similar-ish abilities, with just so much support around him, people like Rob who are helping him do basic tasks like, even handballing and football. Obviously, when you've only got one hand is very difficult, but they found ways to teach him to do basic things like that. So the enjoyment was there, and we came away very buoyed by the fact there was an option for him. I was less buoyed by the idea of driving to Coolbinia every week. So I, again, with my wife's encouragement, thought we'd try to start something similar in East Fremantle. So, as all people often do, I go take a back step. Obviously, I thought about which club I could approach to support me in my journey to start my own Star Kick program. So, the shameless self-promotion here of in my former glory days at East Fremantle. Yeah, I decided to go back into my history and speak to my old former junior football club, which is East Fremantle. I invited myself to a committee meeting and asked if I could speak about starting this All Abilities football program, which I did. And unsurprisingly, they were incredibly supportive and said, that sounds fantastic, just tell us what you need and we're happy to help and we think it's a great idea. And while you're at it, could you also join the committee? And of course, foolishly, I did. I came home and told my wife they accepted Star Kick and I'm now the Auskick coordinator as well. So I took on that role, which at the time, although it sounds humorous now, I think that actually was really important for me to do, because it allowed me to not only focus on Star Kick, to be part of the broader junior football club community and introduce the idea of Star Kick to them. So I did that, and then I shamelessly plagiarised Rob's Star Kick poster and very, very simply put an East Fremantle logo on it. And then went about the task of promoting it to the local community. I approached all sorts of disability advocacy groups, Cerebral Palsy Association, Autism WA, the Ability Centre, some of these groups you may have heard of, all of whom were incredibly supportive and promoted this idea of East Fremantle Star Kick through their membership bases. And it was exciting for me, because I got to then start to be, like Atul mentioned, I was getting this kind of kick out of doing something for the community and volunteering, but also helping my own family and Joe in particular, which was great. So I also went about the task of thinking, okay, if I'm going to coach this team and lead it, I need some help. And again, through Rob's advice and guidance, I approached a number of volunteer organisations and universities to send me and provide volunteers to help on the day. And I was overwhelmed with offers of support as well. But until the actual first day comes, you really don't know how it's going to work out. A, how many kids are going to turn up in their families, how many have actually convinced this is something they want to try, and B, how many volunteers might turn up to give you a hand. So I was sort of counting down the days till that happened. So I had another example here of, I managed to approach the local newspaper and promoted it this way, and they also helped me promote the story. And there's so many avenues. When you tell your story, I was actually quite overwhelmed with how many people were very keen to help me promote this program. So I was confident, although not overly. It wasn't a slam dunk just yet in terms of how many people I was going to get. Day one came around. So this is not just star kick. Being the Auskick coordinator, this is East Fremantle Oval, Shark Park, which is soon to be revamped, as many of you will know. It's a fantastic venue for our Auskick community. But the point of this picture, I think, was to show that the star kick group was incorporated into our broader Auskick program. So Auskick at East Fremantle means roughly 200 kids from pre-primary through to year 2. And Rob made this very clear to me, and I absolutely agree with it, that you don't want to create a star kick program which stands separate to the main part of the club. The whole purpose of it is to create this sense of inclusion. So when the star kick kids turn up, they're just amongst all the 200 other kids who turn up as well, and they then break off into their various groups. They get to get a hot dog afterwards and a drink. They get to the parents can all stand around the other parents and have a coffee and the rest of it. And it was that sense of inclusion that immediately became very important to me and to the footy club. So here's me giving my opening sermon to the masses to let them know that the season's about to start. And then we broke off into our star kick group. I think I've looked at a series of photos. So we had 22 kids turn up on day one. Many of whom, sorry, I'm just going to try to figure out how to word this. Many of whom it was their first ever chance of playing football. It was really important to them and to the parents. So this is going to run automatically perfect. So the response was really, really exciting to me. As you can see, we had a heap of kids turn up. What was immediately obvious to me was just a huge spectrum of abilities and disabilities. We had kids with quite severe disabilities, we had kids who just had mild autism, but for whatever reason they were there because they didn't feel quite comfortable going into a mainstream football program. And not just them, their parents as well. Some of the parents actually had a lot of anxiety about putting their kids into this situation. And once they got there though, they could see that all the other parents around them had similar feelings and similar sentiments to their own. And they saw a number of people, myself and the volunteers, who were there to help them and guide them and be there for them. Some of the kids needed a lot of support. Other kids, to be honest, were actually very good footballers and only were there because they had their own anxiety or mental health issues that prevented them probably integrating with a larger crowd. So first session, fabulous, and it was just a really great experience for me and the club generally to see how well it went. So fast tracking from there, it should be said that Joe had a great time as well, but the benefit I see of this star kick program was that after 2 or 3 weeks, Joe actually said, you know what, I'm going to go back to just my normal Auskick, and went back and actually started playing mainstream Auskick, if you like. And the fact that we had the star kick and Auskick groups running simultaneously allowed not just Joe but other kids as well to move freely between both groups. So there was never any point where it was, there's the star kick kids over there and there's all the Auskick kids. It really was one combined group of all these kids having a great time. And for me as a parent, and I know for my wife as well, very important for the parents as well to feel that sense of inclusion. They got to just stand back and watch their kids play sport and have a coffee and just chat and have a good time, as opposed to being, like many other activities we did, physically having to be there the whole time because you're quite worried about your kid and how he's going to feel, but also physically, can they do it? So once the parents had the comfort that was being looked after by other people, to see how much they could relax and enjoy themselves was, if not as good or better than the experience the kids had as well. So I had so many parents come to me saying, thank God we found somewhere we can actually stop and relax and enjoy our kids playing sport, having a good time, so it was just really positive on many levels. So we got to do all the other fun stuff that all footy teams do. I think I would picture there's our team photo. We had, like everyone else, we had club events, we did wind-ups, we went out and socialised together. We all got along well. There was just kids from all walks of life and all areas. Because we were the only star kick group at that point in the southern suburbs, we had kids and parents who were driving from Rockingham and Mandurah, some were coming from Armidale, all making the effort, but all becoming part of this really strong team that, like I said, I really enjoyed when I was a kid, and I was just so pleased to see these kids be able to experience the same thing. All right, so a couple of final points before I wrap it up. So just going back to Joe, and Joe is, I guess, the core of this story. What it enabled for Joe, particularly, was, I think without star kick initially, he would have struggled to ever really feel comfortable enough to start his football journey. So I'm pleased to say he's still playing footy today. He's playing Year 5 footy for the East Fremantle Power and having a great time. But through that process, he was able to experience and do things that otherwise he never would have been able to do. So He even got to be a shark for a day, so they took him down into the... I'm a mad keen South Fremantle supporter, by the way, so this was very difficult for me. But he got taken down to the club rooms, got given a proper footy jersey, as you can see. You know, all this experience. He was completely overwhelmed, but the look on his face, as you can see, was pretty priceless. I think we have a little clip here. There he is standing, waiting for the players to run out. I mean, they were all very great. They were all very kind to him, these guys. They got to do the run out, and then off he went, held the hand, and got to do a few warm-ups with the kid. You probably can't hear Holly sobbing in the background, but it was all very emotional and really, you know, just so heartwarming to see from a kid. If you remember back to my initial story, wondering if he's ever going to walk and talk and these sort of things, to see him now do this sort of stuff was really pleasing, and it really wouldn't have happened without Star Kick. So, you know, I come back to that again as the reason all this is possible. So, look, just to wrap things up, this was a carnival we did. Again, you know, another one of Rob's great ideas. We actually thought, you know, there's now more than one Star Kick group in Perth. Why don't we run a carnival like other, you know, teams get to do in other clubs? So we had a Star Kick carnival. I think this one was Langley Park, Rob, I think, at the time, where the Star Kick teams played against each other. You know, an enormous amount of fun, incredibly chaotic because kids just not following instructions and running everywhere and doing as they please, basically. But the look again on their faces and the parents to be part of this, again, this carnival was part of a broader Auskick carnival with several hundred kids playing, was incredibly heartwarming and something that, you know, I know my son won't forget, neither will my wife and I imagine a lot of these kids as well. So this, you know, I have since left the Star Kick program, it should be said. I was lucky enough to find a parent who took the reins from me a couple of years ago. I coached for 3 years, and then part of the challenge with, I know most volunteer organisations, particularly in the sporting world, is it really does rely on parents who have kids involved, who are actively involved, to continue. You don't have external support a lot. The WAFL and the AFL were very supportive of the idea, but in terms of actually providing physical support in people and processes was a little bit lacking at the time. That's improved a lot now, more recently, I know. But so Star Kick is still going. I believe there's now, Rob will be able to correct me, but, you know, 6, 7, 8 clubs now in Perth, Star Kick, which started from how many? 15. Wow. There you go. Yeah. 15 clubs. So look, yeah, an incredible story. Mine was a very small part of the overall Star Kick story that, again, you know, Rob's been an integral part of. So with that, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Happy to catch up with people afterwards for any more questions or thoughts, and thanks for giving me the chance to tell my story. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. Yes, Matt and I know each other. Mate, what you've done for your son, you should be very, very proud, and I know you are. And yes, I did mention there's 15 clubs, and one of the new clubs is starting in 2 weeks actually, and it's in Albany, and we're very lucky to have the gentleman who's driving that down there. He's come up to be here today with us, Mitch Tuffley from Albany, and good on you, mate, because you're going to make change just like Matt's done for your community. And I suppose some of the things I took from that, mate, is you said Joe, he didn't see his disability, and I believe, you know, society, kids don't see disability. It's only when you get to our age we get a bit funny and put people in boxes, what you can and can't do. Maybe we just need to be a bit more like our young kids are. But for you and your family being part of something bigger, that was really the key. Not just for you, but for your whole family, that sense of belonging. And belonging to something bigger. You were part of your community. Matt, I won't go on too long, mate, but from me, you're a great dad and a really great human. And with Holly, you guys are a great family, so congratulations. All right, Rob, regroup. Okay, I'm excited now, as we've got a bit of movement at the back, to welcome to the stage Kobe Morrison and the Wallyup Canadral Choir. I first had the pleasure to meet Kobe at another one of our forums early in 2021, and I know you all have a lot to look forward to. Kobe's a 28-year-old Noongar Irish man who was born and raised in Perth. When not working at the UWA Centre of Social Impact and Propel Youth Arts WA, Kobe spends his spare time playing music and being involved in various music projects, including the one we're going to hear from tonight. These projects earned Kobe the 2018 Perth NAIDOC Youth of the Year Award. I also noted Kobe was last year involved in a concert fundraiser in an area that Lily would also appreciate, that being the Westerman Gilia Institute for Indigenous Mental Health. Performing alongside ARIA Award-winning musician and songwriter John Butler, no other. Tonight Kobe is joined by the Wallyup Kunnagal Choir, an inclusive community choir based in Wallyup or Fremantle. Wallyup Kunnagal's aim is to deepen members' shared understanding of Noongar culture, history and language through song, learning a range of Aboriginal songs in both Noongar and English. Welcome Kobe and welcome Wallyup Kunnagal.
Kaya, everyone. Susie. My name is Susie. I'm the coordinator of Wallyup Kunnagal, and as mentioned, Kobe Morrison is our music and cultural director. Just to give you a brief history of how we came about, back in 2018, one of my other roles is I support Greg. He's a pretty awesome artist, and we were looking to either find or create an opportunity that basically was around music and also around Greg's Noongar heritage, and that's how we kind of came in touch with the Majidal Morna Choir, who are based in Forestville. So Kobe's a part of that choir as well with his mum Delaray Morrison, and basically we set up two 8-week terms down at the Fremantle PCYC. So it was a very inclusive and open series of one-off workshops where we had a number of the Nelson residents coming along to our workshops. And we had about 90 people attend over the 16 weeks, which was a massive. I hadn't intended that it would continue, but with so much support and so much success, basically we decided to set up the choir in 2019 as kind of a more permanent fixture. So we've been running since then. Greg plays the didgeridoo, as you saw, the didgeridoo accompaniment for the choir, and we're made up of members of all different ages and all different cultural backgrounds, etc. So essentially what we do is, with Kobe leading us, we basically learn about Noongar culture, Noongar history and Noongar language through song, and we do that through a weekly singing workshop started at the PCYC. We also have special guest local elders and also musicians that come along to share their experiences, their stories, and also some of their songs. In addition to that, we also occasionally do a songwriting workshop. Kobe's been doing, we did one recently on translating songs into Noongar. We also do performances in Fremantle and around the Perth metro area, so events like the one-day event in Fremantle, which is an alternative to Australia Day. Trying to think what else we do. We do quite a lot of things. In addition, I guess more recently we've added a language class with Sharon Gregory, who's a local Whadjuk Noongar Yok or woman. And Kobe and I have also recently been working on a choir collaboration project where we've been working with 5 other local choirs, where basically Kobe is gifting songs from our repertoire and also taking a song from the choir's repertoire and translating them into Noongar. So it's been quite an amazing project that we've got a performance coming up at the Fremantle Festival in August that will showcase the work that we've been doing. I guess when I kind of prepared for tonight, I was trying to think of how the best way to kind of describe what we do, and I guess just a number of words came to me, and so I'm just going to read them out to you. So the ones that kind of came forward were like truth-telling, reconciliation, decolonisation, celebration, inclusion, connection, friendship, well-being, joy, and a sense of community and belonging. Those are the words that pretty much describe what we do. And we're not just kind of, I guess we are a choir, we meet weekly, but we actually are much broader than that as well. I guess we all take what we do into our own personal lives. So we kind of share what we learn with our friends and families. We take it into workplaces, we take it into schools, we take it into communities. And we also gather as a community within ourselves. We often refer to ourselves as a family or as a mort, where we basically go to events that are focused on Noongar heritage and culture, like the Dandu Kulin Summit, which is an annual summit led by elders at UWA. We often go to various First Nations plays together and those kinds of things as well. So we do kind of expand much broadly. So I guess, there's kind of, I didn't really have an idea of what we'd turn into in 2018. It's kind of taken a life on its own. That's kind of just a brief kind of history and overview of what we do. The first song that we sung was actually called Wanju My Friend, and you would have seen that we were doing Auslan as part of that as well. We do that for a few of our songs. And that was written by George Wally, who's based down in Mandurah. And the next song that we're going to sing together is called The Acknowledgement Song, which is a song written by one of our members, Gemma King, who unfortunately isn't here tonight because she is waiting for her PCR test, which is a shame. But Gemma basically wrote the song on local Whadjuk country, with guidance from elders including Auntie Marie Taylor, Marinda Hanson, and also Kobe's mum, Della Ray Morrison. And it's basically a song that aims to provide respect to local custodians of the local land where we're meeting or where we're performing, and also to kind of pay acknowledgement to their ongoing stewardship or connection to country. So Gemma's got an amazing website, acknowledgementsong.com, and she makes it available freely for anyone who'd like to utilise it. So I encourage you, if you'd like to tap into that. So yeah, the Acknowledgement Song.
Acknowledge the land on which we have Kai Mort. How are you? Good. That's good. Kaya Nyanang Kobe. Happy to be here tonight. Nyan Jeb Nija Court. Nija Windang Bujra. Nyan Jeb Jinang Nunuk. Nunuk Bandang Berdia. Nyan Nyan Court Jinang Nunuk Berdia. Nyalang Mila Piri Quabadak. I'm so happy to witness all you. Basically what I'm saying is that my heart is happy to be witnessing so many leaders doing so many wonderful things. It's one of my favourite things about being a part of Inclusion Solutions, being invited back to Inclusion Solutions, is just being able to witness so many different stories from so many areas of the Whadjuk Nation and Australia, just doing some beautiful things. So, like I said, my name's Cove, and I wasn't really sure to put as the subtitle under my name, so I just kind of chose these words because I figured that these words are more or less relevant to everybody in this room at least. It's Kenak Malayan. Can you guys say Kenak? Malayan. One of culture. And each and every one of us is an individual comprised of multiple cultures. You know? I'm comprised of multiple cultures. I am comprised of Nyunga, and within the Nyunga culture, there is, I'm comprised of 4 cultures, which is Minang, Gorang, Kaniang, and Bilman. All right? And I've been born and raised on Whadjuk lands. Some elders feel comfortable enough calling me Whadjuk, you know, but, you know, aside from that, I'm also Irish and German and English, you know. There's so many different cultures, all just, you know, in this vessel, right? And then on top of that, I very proudly belong to the culture of music. That's why I have that thing on my back. I like to call it a Yeti Midi. Can you guys say the word Yeti Midi? It means song thing. I like to call it a Yeti Midi, and it's really fun. So yeah, I belong to the culture of music. This is the first culture that I had deliberately identified with. Like, I became more sound and, you know, belonging to the culture of music before I started understanding the cultures of my background, such as Nyunga, you know? And so most of what I do is through the form of song and through the form of music, because I noticed that this is one of the most universal cultures that is adopted and accepted by so many different people in the world, you know? And it really is one of those reminders that makes us, you know, reiterate that we are not so different, that we all belong to a culture together, some sort of culture. At the very least, we belong to the culture of humanity, all right? At least. And then amongst that, there's so many different cultures, you know? There's the overarching cultures, and then there's cultures within cultures. This is, all this stuff is all what I talk about. It's complex, but we understand it, you know? So this is some of the choirs that I'm a part of, all right? So that's us in pretty much our first year, I think, of operating. Wali Kanjul, gorgeous people. I'm more than proud to be able to call them my people, you know, and I hope that I'm, you know, one of their people as well, you know. And the same can be said about Majuramona, Kundam, Waramarankin, and Delmo. So you might be, yeah. So there's some of these people. And so Majuramona's been going on for about 15 or 16 years or so, and it was founded by my mum, Della Ray Morrison. And I was about, you know, 11, 12 or so. And yeah, more or less I was just coming to choir, sitting in the corner, doing my homework and pretending the choir wasn't there for some reason, I don't know. And then eventually I started bringing my guitar to choir, and you know, now I'm co-coordinator alongside my mum. And aside from that, I'm running the choir, Kundam Choir, which is the offspring choir for those who are, you know, teenagers and young adults who are a little bit intimidated by Majuramona. Yeah, they we all, gather on occasion. And then this is Della Mob, which is another grouping that's run by my mum and I play guitar for. Being supported by Wasso, I guess. And and so all these groupings, it's a culture within itself, Like we operate and we gather at the under a particular context of these, cultures, but then we end up forging something that's particularly unique to ourselves. So the Waliala Carnival is a unique, specific culture. Inclusion solutions, unique culture. You know what I mean? And the same can be said about all these other groupings as well. When you operate within a particular culture and you feel a sense of belonging as a grouping, you feel like you're able to operate with truth. You feel to be able to operate with confidence, with understanding, with care, with love. All right? And this is some of the huge motivations with some of the initiatives that I run and co-run. Some of these initiatives, they try to highlight very important things like you are not alone. Like some of the stuff that Lily was talking about during her presentation about having the importance of having bonding within your athletics group. That is relevant to so many groups. That should be relevant to all the groups. Having a sense of bonding, having a sense of care with your people. Having a sense of care, feeling confident enough to be able to say, I care for those people. When you have a sense of care with individuals and understandings within your whole grouping, you feel comfortable enough to do pretty much everything together. You know what I mean? So, like, most of the time we're called a choir, but was it ever just that? You know what I mean? Like, it never is just that. We feel comfortable enough to, go to movies together, go out to dinner together. We often go to, like, sometimes the art gallery when it's like revealed. Sometimes it has been on recently, which was really fun, and want to go to that one. Just so you guys know. And being able to do everything together, like Fiwa, when everything that you guys do, like, it's exponential. It's gorgeous to be able to see how all-encompassing a grouping can become when they're so tightly bonded together. Together. And when you feel a sense of strength and love in your initiatives, much like how Penny felt a sense of strength within soccer and football, and being able to operate with confidence about it and being able to talk about it on a regular basis on the radio. When you're so passionate about something because you feel that sense of care and love, and people are inspired by that, such as myself, it's just like you operate with a sense of truth. And so, like, I try to hopefully do stuff like that. And so these are some of the things, I've already mentioned Kundam Karnajul and Najudamwana. Kulong is an initiative in which we go into schools and we teach Noongar culture through song. And so on the next slide, you'll be able to see me and my team. So there's me, Kira, Sarah and Cesara, and we like to go into schools, primary schools, and now, as of late, early childhood and secondary schools. We like to teach music and we like to have the conversation and have music, as our cornerstone of our truth-telling together, And the same can be said for Yiriyakan's Morishuela initiatives, which is where we go into high schools and pretty much do the exact same thing, but instead of music, it's theatre, and we teach through theatre. And so that was one of our groupings that we taught last year at the Queen's Beach Baptist College. It was absolutely gorgeous. Those kids were really, really clued in, understanding. Right now at Propel Youth Arts, I'm known as a community liaison officer. This is a role that I'm currently advocating for. So they never had a role of community liaison, and so I was telling them that this is extremely important. And so right now I've just been for Propel. I've just told them that they should just hire me at the absolute lowest rate that they can, and I just help build and form a fully fledged role that somebody else can, eventually succeed me. And so yeah, Propel is a wonderful Propel Youth Arts. If you know of any kids in between 12 and 26, I definitely recommend you point them in their direction. While it's arts predominantly, like it's just a gorgeous, welcoming community as per usual. And so, it's been really, really lovely working with them. Absolutely gorgeous. So the music that the majority of the music that I do, I've been songwriting for about a decade now, and I notice that a lot of the songs that I write are like they kind of end up becoming all-encompassing because they're a bit of a reflection of like me and my identity, my understandings towards the world, my soul essentially. And I noticed that there are some that were very different from others, and that's why I decided to operate under multiple different titles, such as Kortal, which means with heart in Yunga. Endeavourous is my folk pops band, and the Bell and the Bow is a project that me and my partner Annabelle run, which is like EDM music, and as of late, Cardigan Phase, which is lo-fi music that doesn't have any lyrics that can hopefully be appreciated by anybody, no matter what language they speak. And so, if you feel compelled to, please check out some of the songs. One of my recent releases is called Yay, Yay under Kortal, which is Yay in Yunga means now. I had written this song. I had written Yay because it was extremely, I just wanted to get it. I wanted to start now. Like there were so many different things that we want to do, and like the reason why I wrote this song was that for anybody who's listening to it, I would like them to see this as the sign, if they were ever looking for a sign to start that project. Like this is it, so as I said, like music is a huge part of my culture. There's so many different things that I would consider a part of my culture, so like aside from music and my cultural backgrounds, I'm a part of like video game culture and books culture, I like being out in nature and walking and exploring. That can be a culture within itself as well, so it's been really, really, really lovely to be able to walk with such confidence and with such truth and care, and be able to iterate and reiterate to pretty much anybody that I meet, that I more or less care, right? Because that's sometimes a thing that's not always said. The gesture of care is not always present. Even if that person does care, sometimes they don't mention it, and then as a result, the other party ends up assuming that maybe the care is not there. You know what I mean? So, traditional Wajak Noongar nation, as well as surrounding nations, we were able to operate under the assumption of care for one another, and it sometimes can be lost as a result of very different cultures operating on a very different scale. And that's why I think that as of, where we are at today, being able to reiterate the gesture of care in the way that you know how to, do that as much as you can, and you'll be able to see the world change and respond for the better as a result of it. So we have a song that my mum had written, called Universal Love. She had written it in about 1997, and in 2017 I translated it into Nyunga. And this was the first song that I have ever translated, warts and all. So as you see it right there, that's exactly the way that I had translated it in what I believed was the correct stuff. There are so many things wrong with it because I was still very early in my days. And so I had a chat with my mum and I was just like, maybe I should update it, or do something about it. And she's like, no, this is a step. This is a very important step, and this is a callback to this important step to see where you're at in comparison to where you are now. And where I'm at now, I'm stoked to be able to write in Nyunga. I'm stoked to be able to sing in Nyunga and speak in Nyunga, And I want to be able to achieve the same for Gaelic Irish and German as well. These are important stuff. It's important things that shouldn't be lost on us. All right, I'm going to get you to repeat after me with these lyrics. But before we do so, I'll get you guys to do a tongue twister, because this is a tongue twister that we like to do when we do our warm-ups for choir at the start of every choir. Can you guys say Nyalang? Nakalak. Karak. Nyalang nakalak kadak. Not bad. Nyalang nakalakadak. This translates to, we are the holders of knowledge. We are the holders of knowledge. Together. Alright? Nyalang nakalakadak. Manda wunya. Ni gerelde. Yel nyalak. Jinang mila. Danju gora. Waja Kenya. Kot Barabara. Uramo Garam. Enyin Malyak. Wangan Wama. Ken Mondiwen. Kajan. Alright. Sweet. Let's give it a go. Well done.
Thanks, Kobe, and thanks, Wally Up Cunningham. What a great way to end tonight's forum. A big thank you to all our presenters for sharing your stories with us. I really loved hearing your journeys, and for me it's clear just ordinary people can and do change the world for the better. Now, before we wrap up for a bit of networking, a drink or a bite to eat, in my case, on your table there's some commitment postcards. Now, when we began tonight, those that were here at the start, my hope was that everyone would take away one thing from tonight. Just one thing that we'd each seek to uphold in our day-to-day lives. So with that in mind, could we ask you to take a moment, put pen to paper with your one personal commitment to inclusion. It doesn't need to be big, but each commitment helps to ensure together that we speak up, we be brave, and we make change. Just when done, drop them in the box at the registration table. You passed on the way through in the foyer. And in 6 months' time, we're going to post them back to you. And you can see how you're going. There's also some feedback forms on the table. If you can provide us any inputs and thoughts, they just help us improve. Alternatively, we'll spam your inbox if you don't give them back to us until you do. Again, thanks to our sponsors and supporters who are, without these forums, they just wouldn't be possible. Lottery West, Evolve Wealth Management and our partners tonight, City of Melbourne. And thanks to the Inclusion Solutions staff working behind the scenes, in particular tonight's organisers, Laura Bullock and Kiara Cooney. Please stay, mingle, chat, take photos, tag us in your social media posts at Inclusion Solutions WA. And remember, Jazzy is waiting feverishly to take your money. She prefers Amex because they have no credit limit. And lastly from me, just remember your actions, big and small, are what is helping drive positive change in your community. Good night and thanks for being with us.